other than using your body, people also make a few other really simple mistakes when they serve. So some of the mistakes that people make are they'll lock their wrist, or they'll use a grip where it's impossible to move their wrist very much. So as a shake hand player, because I don't think we have any pen hold players here, watch how he holds his racket, right? And show them how much you can move your wrist when you're holding it this way. Look at his range of motion with his wrist, right? That's a good range of motion. Now if you were to hold it like just a regular grip, now all of a sudden his range of motion with his wrist is very limited, right? So without any momentum coming into the ball, it's very difficult for him to generate as much spin. So that's why you see people change the grip to almost be more like a pen hold grip when you serve. That's the reason why. Other mistakes people make are, you'll see people, they'll lose their momentum when they're serving, right? They'll make a lot of motions that don't impact the serve at all, that don't impact the contact. So these are just basic things. You might see people do a lot of extra motion before they serve in all sorts of different directions that have nothing to do with the contact. Generally, you're just wasting energy. For example, if I do a really big backswing, if I do a really fast backswing on my serve, right? If I go like this, by the time I get to contact the ball, I've already released about half my energy. So what you want to be able to do is have a backswing, have some momentum going to the ball, but don't actually go very fast until the point of contact. So if you can show, like, watch how he's not, watch how he's not really doing much until establishing momentum and then missing his serve. So only right when he's about to make contact does all that energy release. Like if he just like does this, then there's nothing on the ball. So he has to accelerate right at the point of contact. Another thing to note is, I'm not sure if you guys talked a little bit about yesterday, but being able to control the first bounce on your serve, right? So that's extremely important when you're practicing your serve. Being able to control the first bounce allows you to consistently either serve short or serve deep with much better quality. So if he's serving short, most players, the most basic short serve, the first bounce is going to land, watch his first bounce, it's going to land somewhere closer to the middle of the table, closer to the net. Probably somewhere along this strip. This area right here is where his first bounce is going to land. Right? So that's a basic short serve. If he can get his first bounce there, the serve's probably going to bounce twice on the opponent's side of the table. And the way you want to control that is, as we talked about before, you want to control that first bounce, really find the first bounce with your waist and your weight transfer. Right? You don't want to try to find that first bounce with your arm, because that becomes very inconsistent. At 9-9, that serve is for sure going to break down, whereas your body movements are going to be far more consistent. Now, if he wants to serve deep, the first bounce is going to be really close to his end line. Right? Watch his first bounce, it's going to be really close to the end line. That ensures that you can get a lot of explosive power through the movement without the ball going out, and generally you're going to get a pretty deep serve. So you want to practice getting that first bounce really close to the end line. Okay, so how do I get deception? Does anybody know?
It's illegal where you are body and hand. Especially hand, free hand.
So, if we don't consider that some of you are serving like behind your head and behind your body, what are some legal ways to get deception?
Very well.
What are some legal ways to get deception when you're serving?
They're close to your body, so that's not hidden for this.
Okay. So the way you get deception, so Larry, I know in his lectures likes to talk a lot about using semicircular movements. So we'll explain a little bit about why those types of movements are effective. A lot of you already do it. I don't know if you know why it's effective, but you do. So the easiest way probably to illustrate the the semicircular motion, how to get deception out of it, is probably the side under and side top. Because those two, a lot of you already know how to do. So if he's serving side underspin, right, he's using one motion, side underspin, right, or side topspin. Right. So if he does the same semicircular motion for both, now if I contact at a certain point along this trajectory and I contact the leading edge of my racket, what direction am I going to? Down? I'm going downside, right? So this is going to be side under, and I'm going to continue my motion after contact, right? If I contact with the back side of my racket, the trailing edge of my racket, what direction is this going? Right, either side or up, right? So it's either going to be side or side top. So basically, I've done the same motion, but I've contacted at two different points along the trajectory. It's sometimes for you guys, it's going to be easier to think about it as two different points on your racket. Which point of the racket am I hitting? But it's really the same thing. So I've done the same motion, I've gotten two different serves out of it, right? So that's the way that deception works, completely legal, right? I could serve that serve this far away from my body, and it would still be a little bit difficult to read for somebody, because it's the exact same motion. One more thing I'm going to talk about with the serve is just how you experiment with new serves, because a lot of you I know will want to try new serves, but you don't know where to start. Like if you see a professional player, they're serving some serve, for example, reverse pendulum, where do I start? How do I start learning that serve? And a lot of you will just copy the motion and then try to put the ball at the point on the table that you want. And generally what happens is you get the motion down, and maybe you get okay placement, but there's not too much spin on the ball. And once your opponent realizes this, they can do whatever they want to the ball, right? Because it's always very light spin. So they'll be able to flip if they want to, they can drop, they can push, they can do pretty much whatever. So one thing you want to do is, with any new serve, and with any new technique in general, you want to decide how can I get the motion so that I can release energy properly first. In this case, with the serve, what we want is as much spin as possible. How do I get the spin on it? That's how you want to approach it first before you decide, okay, how do I make it short? How do I make it go to the right spot on the table? So for example, if I'm serving reverse pendulum, I want to get the whole motion so that I can release the energy, right? So if you watch his motion, you want to get the right momentum, you want to at the point of contact, okay, I can feel I can get my full wrist motion, my full range of wrist motion, my body's going into it, I can release all my energy that way. If I find that, okay, I'm just going like this with just my wrist, right? Or if my wrist feels locked, then I have to figure out why I'm not able to get as much spin as I want to. In fact, it's sometimes better, and I know even professional players do this with their established serves, don't even do it on the table. You can do it on the floor, you can serve on the floor and see where the ball's spinning, right? So if he wants to practice a serve, he can practice on the floor, so he can see what his spin is, or he can just do this and see what his spin is, or he can serve directly on the floor. The interesting story is Kaizen Hua, who used to be the Chinese national team coach and was world champion. He used to serve on a bed sheet and see how the ball spins. Liu Guoliang, I know, uses this technique with a lot of his players to see how their serve quality is and to see where the ball is spinning. He has them serve directly on the floor, because when you serve on the table, the spin changes as it hits the table. So he wants to see exactly how the ball is spinning and what trajectory it's going to go in. He has them serve on the floor. So especially when you're trying to figure out how to serve new serves, this is a really good way to figure out, okay, how can I get quality on the ball first? Because if you can't do that, then it's probably not really worth serving in the long run. Okay? Any questions on serve? So last thing about serve is, Coach McPhee maybe touched on a little bit, but as you get more advanced, you really want to think about how this serve goes into the next two balls. So now, before we talk about serve and attack, you guys practice a lot of serve and attack. With modern table tennis, it's even more important to think about not just third ball attack, but fifth ball attack as well. How does your serve transition? The basic thing, which I'm not going to get too much into today, is you really want to, as you serve, observe and consider where the opponent is going to return the ball. If you have a high quality serve, you're going to find that most opponents are going to return it pretty much the same few ways, because you're really limiting their options. If I serve a really, really heavy backspin serve, you'll find that it might be very difficult for most opponents to drop shot that ball at a high quality. They're probably going to make the safe return, which is push, if I serve heavy side under with the pendulum, right, they're probably going to go somewhere into my backhand corner. So you'll find that why do good forehand attackers prefer this serve, either spin no spin or heavy backside with a normal pendulum? They'll serve that serve and they'll plant somewhere in this corner, right? He's actually a good example because he likes to serve this serve and really try to attack the next ball with his forehand. He's not going to serve much reverse pendulum or hook serve, not too much. Can somebody tell me why? That's one reason. You know why, Aziz? No? If he serves reverse pendulum or hook, especially the hook, where are most people going to return the ball? Or how are most people going to return the ball?
It's a backhand.
Right, and in fact, these balls are really easy to backhand flip against strong opponents, right? If he serves this or this, it's actually a very natural ball for right-handers to backhand flip, which puts him on the defensive immediately. He's going to get stuck if he tries to step around, for the most part, and so he's going to immediately be forced to chop, since he's a chopper, because he doesn't really have a backhand attack. So even though it's a good serve, it's not a good serve for his game. It's a good serve for Jung Ji-Ke, it's not a good serve for him. Right? So as you're serving, also consider what impact it has on your game. It's okay to develop a serve and see what happens. If after a few months you find that, okay, this serve might not be the best for my game, it's okay to move on to something else. But don't give up on the serve just because the serve quality isn't quite very good. So it's something to think about.